Hi, good to see you. I'm Debbie. Thanks for joining me. It's Sunday as I record this. It's 3 p.m. Eastern as I record this. So I am live, and most Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern, I go live, and this is the AMA, Ask Me Anything session. And this is the name suggests you get to ask me anything. I help couples who want to have a wedding anywhere they choose. And this is the whole reason for HitchedAway. I specialize in the Caribbean, but I'm also of the belief that you can have your wedding just about anywhere. So if that's you or someone you know, I'd love to talk to you. Um, I'm recording live, as I say, but you may be watching the replay. So if you're watching the replay, thank you. And it's typically an open forum. The last broadcast I did, I went over what did we talk about again? um, we talked about how to give your local wedding that destination wedding feel. And destination weddings, by the very nature, are very out of the box, right? And the idea is you have your wedding away from home, away from where you're based. Most weddings happen in your hometown or very close to where you or your fiance lives, right? And destination wedding is involves travel, and everybody goes to some place. Everyone goes to this destination. But I like to think of the whole destination wedding thing as just thinking outside of the box, um, meaning not going the traditional route. And we talked about this last week. And, one thing I failed to mention, and it came up in a conversation I was having with a friend, thank you, Kesta. And one of the things I said that you could do for your local wedding to give that destination wedding vibe is to create a theme and develop this theme around your passion. And I forgot to mention two incredible weddings that happened that we talked about a few weeks ago. One being an underwater wedding, which was just amazing all by itself. And then another one, actually we didn't talk about the other one, but there was a couple that did this wedding on board a plane and had the reception. So it sounds a little kitschy, but it's memorable, and I think this is a great way to shine and be who you want to be. So I think starting off your married life together with a wedding that just has your signature on it, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Okay. All right. So I have a few questions, and the questions this week are really about what I do. I'm fine to talk about me, but I really don't want it to be the Debbie show, which is kind of weird because it's kind of me. So it is sort of the Debbie show, but you know what I mean, right? Someone asked me recently why my Christmas tree was still up. I will have you know that the Christmas tree is a year-round tree now. So it's pink, my favorite color, or one of my favorite colors, and it is currently decorated for Valentine's. So if you were to look closely, you would see it's with hearts. And I think that's a great it ties in great with with weddings and romance and things like that. And then I think the next big holiday coming up is well, the one that I can decorate for is St. Patrick's Day. So somehow I will involve green on my forever tree. So just wanted to answer that question. All right. So one of the questions that I got, and feel free to ask any questions today live, right? Just let me know. Just type them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. All right. Someone asked, how much do you charge? That's a legit question. So, as someone who advocates for, I want to be able to, what my goal is, one of my biggest goals is to demystify, how to plan destination wedding. I think a lot of people know what a destination wedding is, but not many people know where to begin and what to do. Right. So there's that. But once someone makes a decision or is close to making that decision and they reach out to me, it's, I provide a service. What is my fee? And that depends. So I specialize in weddings that happen in the Caribbean. And there are several different options you have. You can have something very custom, or you can have something at an all-inclusive resort, which is what a lot of couples do. There's a lot less, it's a lot easier for planning. It's usually a lot more budget friendly, and it's also much more convenient for your wedding guests. So if you're inviting guests and you want to get married in the Caribbean, an all-inclusive resort is is something that I would urge you to consider. Not the only option there is, of course. So in planning an all-inclusive destination wedding, the resort tends to do a lot of the planning for you. They create packages and you get to pick what you want. The packages include elements for your ceremony, elements for the reception, the food, the music, and for the ceremony, the officiant, the location, the decor, all of those things that you would expect for a wedding. And you pay a set price, and this is what's involved in the package. So they have that figured out. The thing is, they usually don't really get involved too much until about 60 days before the wedding. Prior to that, though, you've got to get all your guests together and get them, to decide on to book their room at the hotel and book their travel and make sure people are following deadlines so they don't miss out on things like that and get their payments in. So that's the travel side of creating a destination wedding. And I say all this to say is that when you work with someone like me, I handle a lot of what's going on prior to those 60 days. Remember, I said the resort usually doesn't do much of the heavy lifting until 60 days before the actual wedding date. Now, granted, you've got to, make your reservation, reserve the wedding, reserve the space. You do all of that at least, a good year or so ahead of time. But there's this gap once that's done where the resort really doesn't do much. And that's where I sort of come in. So my fee in helping clients really depends. One of my preferred brands, one of the preferred resorts that I work with is Sandals. Sandals is an all-inclusive, couples only, i.e. adult only resort. They also have a sister brand known as Beaches, which is also all-inclusive, but includes it's available for everyone, not just couples, from grandma to the baby can go and stay at Beaches. So depending on, Sandals is again for adults and couples, but if you want to have more a broader guest list, then I would suggest Beaches if that's the brand that you're working with, you choose to have your wedding. When I work with Sandals and Beaches resorts, I charge a much lower fee. In some instances, there's no fee at all. And it's really based on the head count and the timing. Typically, as I record this, if you've got 20 guests or less, there's usually no fee involved. My planning fee, there's no fee. Once you go beyond that and you're having a larger wedding, and 20 doesn't sound like a lot of people, but for a destination wedding, yeah, thereabouts. Once you're heading, let's say, beyond the 30 mark, usually there's there's some leeway between 20 and 30, because a lot of times the head count you think you're going to have isn't really what pans out. But once you're going beyond the 30 plus mark, this is the guest head count, then my fees kick in. This is for Sandals and Beaches Resort, starting at around the $500 US, $500 US, $500 in US currency for my fee, and then just moves up on a sliding scale there. Okay, so that's for Sandals and Beaches. If you're having a wedding at another all-inclusive resort in the Caribbean that is not Sandals, that is not Beaches, then my fee begins closer to the $1,000 mark. And that's based on head count and logistics. And this includes finding the location, negotiating a room block, which is the place where all of your guests stay, making sure that your guests have a room to stay and the room rates they're going to pay. And then I handle all of the guest questions, which room should we stay in? We want to stay in this room. We want an oceanfront. We want to stay in the penthouse. We want to stay in an over the water bungalow. What is this going to cost? What should we do? I handle that. So my fee, again, for an all-inclusive wedding, not at a Sandals or not at a Beaches resort, begins at around $1,000 US. Now, if you decide that you're having a wedding at a resort, not at a resort, but something that's custom, bespoke, meaning you're having maybe an off-site location, a place that doesn't include accommodation. Really, the key is that they don't include wedding packages, and we've got to put everything together. Then that's a custom rate that we've got to talk about. And that is going to be significantly more because there's a lot more of work that's involved. So the best thing to do really with regard to working with me is just to contact me. If you go to HitchedAway.com/call, HitchedAway.com/CALL, and book a consultation, and let's just talk. let's figure out what it is that you want to do. And this is not a high pressure sales call. This is a way for me to find out what you want, what your budget is, what you're willing to pay. And I say what you're willing to pay because I think a lot of times people have an idea in their mind of what a destination wedding is going to cost, but the disconnect comes in with what they want and what's available and the pricing. So we talk about that. And you may decide that this doesn't work out for you. It's not a high pressure call. It's just for me to answer your questions and say, hey, based on what you shared with me, this might be a better route. Right. So that, I hope that answers your question about, what my fees are. So for some instances, there are no fees at all. Now, I became the world's most reluctant travel advisor when I decided to specialize in destination weddings. Prior to specializing in destination weddings, I was planning weddings locally, took a break from that, but everything was local. And it was one couple that's asked for my help with a wedding outside of the US that kind of opened up this whole can of worms for me. So once I decided to specialize in destination weddings, I realized that travel was a huge part of this. And many wedding planners will work with a travel advisor. Me, Debbie, being the control freak I am, said, I want to learn, I got to figure out how to do this. So I am now actually, I am a travel advisor. I don't maybe promote that as much as I should, but I did that specifically so that I could help clients with the travel portion. So like when you're negotiating a room block with the hotel, you can do that, the couple getting married, but there will always be things that are available to a travel advisor that you, the consumer, will not have access to. There are just certain things that you won't have access to, you won't even know about. So I have the credentials now to work with travel suppliers and travel wholesalers and different resorts. Just like when you go to the store, right? And you pick something off the shelf and you're paying retail for it. That store has paid for it wholesale, right? They've marked it up and then they're selling it to you. Travel works in a kind of sort of the same way. The difference is that when you're working with this hotel specifically, XYZ hotel, you can work with them directly, but there are also travel supplies and travel wholesalers that can maybe give you a better deal when working with that hotel. And that travel supplier or that travel wholesaler won't work with you, the consumer. They will work with a travel advisor, i.e. someone like me. So I have those credentials to, in essence, sell travel, um, whether it's air, land, cruise. I don't typically book air, I'll tell you that now, but those credentials are in place. And the only reason I did that was so that I could help clients with their destination wedding. So just to help you understand, I am a travel advisor. Having said that, if you're having a local wedding, but you haven't figured out your honeymoon, I can help you with your honeymoon. And booking your honeymoon, there is no fee for me to do that. I can tell you, make suggestions, whether it's the Caribbean or whether you want to go to the South Pacific. I can help you with that. There is no planning fee currently, I say currently, for booking a honeymoon because it's travel. And the reason why there is no fee is the way that the system works is that once I book travel for you, that supplier or that resort or that hotel will pay me, give me a thank you fee, which is a commission that I receive. So a little more convoluted and long-winded than than what you hoped for, but I just want to make sure that you understand how this business model of mine works. Okay? Questions? Let me know if you're live, but just reach out. I'm happy to be as transparent as I possibly can with regard to how this industry works. All right, so that's the answer to do you charge a planning fee? Or how much do you charge? Another question I got was, do you attend weddings that happen away? If you're having a destination wedding, will you go? That depends. If you're having a wedding at an all-inclusive resort, typically that resort has everything figured out. There really isn't much of a need for me to be there. But if you're having a large wedding, guests, and there are a lot of moving parts and you need me there, yes, I can absolutely travel depending on scheduling and things like that. Because what happens is when I go with you when I accompany a couple on for their destination wedding, I don't want to get in the way of the resort. But to be fair, some resorts just don't really have it together. Yes, they have wonderful photos. Yes, they have great images. They have tons and tons of people following them on social media, but they don't really have their act together. And this is another reason why you want to work with a travel advisor, because we kind of get the inside scoop. And it can be a little haphazard, a little disorganized. And in those instances, it might make sense to have someone there, someone like me there. But for the most part, for destination wedding at an all-inclusive, there really isn't a need for me to be there. Now, depending on what's going on, I might decide, hey, I'm going to show up because I want to meet some of the folks on the resort, but typically no. But if you're having one of those bespoke, very personalized wedding at an offsite location that's not at a resort, yeah, there's probably makes sense for me to be there, and I will encourage that. The very first wedding that I did, I went with the couple, but I didn't have my travel advisor hat. I had my wedding planner hat on, and I got there a few days before the wedding, had to make sure the things were together. Again, I don't want to name the resort, but I'm thankful I was there because it was a little disorganized. I'm going to let you into a secret. Several resorts that have a wedding department don't really have a wedding department. This is oftentimes someone who is working at the front desk or maybe in sales. And for your wedding, they put on their wedding planner hat. So they don't really have a system or a department that's dedicated to planning weddings. That's changing as destination weddings become a lot more popular. But in many instances, that person is not dedicated to your wedding. So that means they're focused, that they're distracted, and you're not always able to get a response as quickly as you can. When you arrive at on site, you may say, hey, we were supposed to get A, B, C, and they only have A and B. They forgot about C. No bad intentions or ill intentions. It's just that the systems are not in place. I will tell you, for Sandals and Beaches resorts, that is not the case. That's not a plug for them, but it lets you know why that resort brand is one of my preferred brands, because they have it together. I don't have to worry about anything. But you sometimes it depends. So yes, I can accompany couples, but usually when someone asks me that up front, I say, let's see how things progress closer to the wedding, then we can make that call. All right. I hope that answers your question. So I can go to the wedding if you choose. If it's a destination wedding. Now, locally, I do some things too. I haven't planned a local wedding in a while because I've just been so focused on other things. But most recently, I officiated a wedding. So I am authorized to perform weddings. Yes, Reverend Debbie is on that that is a certificate. But in officiating weddings, what I try to do is to create my own package so that it's easier for the client, for the couple. So try to include photography and all the other bits and pieces. And for that, of course, I would need to be there. If you're having a local wedding, and I'm in the Washington, D.C. metro area, if you're having a wedding and you need a day of wedding coordinator, depending on my calendar, I absolutely would love to be a part of that. Full service weddings kind of juggle depending on what's going on with the destination weddings, but absolutely is a possibility. So for those weddings, yeah, I'm there, usually with an entourage to make sure your day flows smoothly. So yes, I can go to your wedding if it's at a destination wedding, if need be, oftentimes not. All right. I hope that answers your question. Hey, the commanders are playing, and yet Janice is here. Hi, Janice. I was going to show your comment. It's gone. What happened to it? Oh, there it is. Janice is here, and Janice says, has anyone seen Don't Tell the Bride? The husband plans the whole wedding down to the dresses. They come up with some unique ideas, and I believe they have about 1 or 2 weeks to plan. I have seen that show. And I think it's great. It's just sort of like, most brides, though, don't want to release control. But could you imagine that your other half has said, I got it. I'm going to plan this wedding. And yeah, they pull it together. I don't know. Janice, remind me, does the bride know it's happening? I guess because they say they don't tell I think it's done in secret, right? He plans it, or does he say to her, I think he says the groom says to the bride to be, I want to plan the wedding in 2 weeks and let me at it. I can't remember, or if it's just ta-da, we're getting married tomorrow, or ta-da, we're getting married this afternoon. But yes, I have seen that show. I think there's but tell me, Janice, remind me if it's complete. Is everything done in that clandestine? I mean, does the bride know anything? I cannot remember, or anyone else chime in. But I have seen that show. I think weddings that happen quickly are great, and we talked about this in our last episode, right? When you don't have a lot of time, you just got to think quickly, and things just kind of fall into place. You get it done. It just gets done. But when you have more time, you come up with you come up with a decision, and you say, okay, we're going to do that, and then you're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, I saw this, so I want to change this, and there's just a lot more room for back and forth, back and forth. But there's something to be said about planning a wedding very quickly. Oh, okay. Janice answered my question. She says, oh, sorry, this is it. The bride knows he's planning, but has no input. Great. So in that don't tell the bride. So the bride knows and she has no input. She's probably just dying inside, right? So yeah, something to be said. I think I love that challenge. Hey, if you or someone wants to do that, I'm in on that. I want to be a part of that. Okay. So Janice goes on to say, I'm attending a 60th birthday in Jamaica at the Riu Palace. Would you get the commission if you planned the travel? Good question. I would get the commission if I negotiate the room block with that hotel. That's how it works. The commission is tied in with the room block, or if I initiated the booking setup. I'm not sure. And thanks for asking, Janice. I'm not sure how that's set up. So you can have your wedding, right, at a place like the Riu, which is an all-inclusive in Jamaica. And you can just say to your guests, this is where we're getting married. This is the link. You can go to the hotel, book your room, and that's it. You can also negotiate a room block, and the hotel sets aside a group of rooms for you and says, we're putting aside these 10, 20, 30 rooms for your guests. This is the rate per night. And if your guests want to be part of this, they must book by this date, April 15th, whatever. Or pay their deposit by this date. And then their final payment is due by this date. That's usually part of a room block. And if I am the person that has negotiated, i.e. set that up with the hotel, or maybe I do it through a travel supplier or a wholesale like I just talked about, then yes, if I'm controlling the booking, then I would say to guests, hey, this is the link to book. Choose what type of room. Do you want oceanfront? Do you want, really high end? Do you just want budget friendly? And then yes, once the wedding is over, then I would get the commission. But if the room block is already set up, usually by another travel agent, although the couple may have done it themselves, then no, the commission, I would have no part of that. But good question. Serena's here. Hi, Serena. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And she's chiming in about the Don't Tell the Bride show. Serena says, I think she knows about it. The bride knows about the planning. She just doesn't have any part of it. And Serena goes on to say, it would leave my nerves in tatters. Absolutely. I mean, me, the control freak, I would be, you know what? Just don't even tell me. Just don't even tell me. Don't even know. I was going to say, just let me show up, but that's not going to work because I warn people about surprise birthday parties and I'm like, not happy about that. But yeah, a wedding is a really big deal. And to have someone, not you involved, plan it, typically your other half, and if it's a heterosexual wedding, then it's the guy planning it. Usually that's not a good thing. I rephrase that. That usually that's going to leave somebody panicked. I don't know if the vibes are the same for a same-sex couple, but usually in a relationship, one person is more dominant than the other, typically, maybe in different aspects. And for a heterosexual wedding, typically, the woman is the person, the bride is the person that's usually in control of that. So yeah, I don't know. That would drive me insane. I would lose my mind. So yeah, Don't Tell the Bride. I think it's isn't it a British show? I've seen it on the British channel. I know there's a lot of crossover with the TV shows, but I remember seeing it on one of the UK channels, but I could be wrong there. But yeah, don't tell the bride. I think having a surprise wedding is a way to go. Janice, you and I have talked about this, where you invite people. You and your other half plan the wedding, right? You invite them over, and they either think they're coming for just a big old party, or they think they're coming for an engagement party. And maybe you go a little further and you say, please wear this color, because there are a lot of parties that have dress codes, which I personally hate, but understand the reasoning for it. And then at some point, you say, we're so glad you're all here, but what you may not know is you're here for a wedding and we're getting married right here, right now. And then there's maybe a 30-minute window and everyone's like, oh my God, they're getting married. I can't believe it. And then the couple goes behind scenes, changes into their wedding day garments. And then the officiant is there. There's an altar, or there's a separate room, or somehow the room is flipped and set up for a wedding ceremony. And just like that, there's a wedding. Just like that. So if that was the event you were invited to and you decided not to go, you're going to be so mad. But the surprise, we're getting married. And this works really well for an encore wedding, meaning this is not your first wedding, or just a wedding that you want to involve people, but you just don't want a lot of fuss. Sometimes it's just a last minute decision. Let's do that. So a surprise wedding, I think, is a really great way to still have your wedding. Kind of like, I keep bringing in the destination wedding vibe, but just thinking outside of the box. You have those near and dear to you, and then you just say, we're getting married now, and it's happening right there on the spot. I don't know. What do you think about that? Surprise wedding? Yes, no, maybe so. Janice says, no matter how it turns out, they end up enjoying the day. It's British. Oh, okay. So don't tell the bride. Yes. So it's a British show. So it just goes to show, right? We go through all of this brouhaha to plan a wedding, right? And spend all this money. But if you plan it and let your other half plan it in 1 to 2 weeks, as nerve-wracking as it is, usually it's a good feeling. And I bet you it's a wedding that no one will ever forget. And again, when your back is up against the wall and you don't have a lot of room to change your mind, but you make concrete decisions and you just stick with them and you go with it, it'll be just fine. Janice says, yes, I love that idea. And I believe you're talking about the surprise wedding, right? It's something to think about. What you just need to do is to get all the planning in motion, maybe tell maybe 1 or 2 people what you're planning, but you got to be careful. It's like Chinese whispers. No one's going to someone's going to leak the story, but maybe you want to tell your parents perhaps, and maybe you just tell them at the last possible minute, but you don't want to share that. So again, a couple of ways you can do it, just having a regular gathering, or you're saying you're having a very nice, you're having a nice dinner party. The reason I say you add the nice part is so that people show up in their best outfits, right? So that when the photos and the videos are there, then, they're looking their best, but you just don't let them know the wedding part, you drop that surprise at the very, very last minute. Okay. All right. We're right up at 3:30. I really am so happy that you joined me here today. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Serena. Thank you for the silent listeners. Thank you, Mom. I know you're watching. I really appreciate it. To keep track of these events, please visit. I always give you a different URL. So I know we have the email list, but if you just want to register for an event, you don't have to register. But if you do register, what will happen is that you'll get a reminder. So if you go to HitchedAway.com/events, HitchedAway.com/events, and you'll see the upcoming episodes. I think I only have one more set up for this month. And if you click and register and just enter your email, it's going to remind you a few minutes before that we go live. But it's totally up to you. Janice says, I set my alarm. Oh, I love you, girl. Thank you. Do what you have to do. I'm so happy that you are here. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. So I think that's it for me. Here in the DC area, there's a big game going on. I think it starts going on right now. Our local team is eyeing the Super Bowl there. So I'm sure the football fans are glued to that. But I think it's early enough right now that I can get your attention, but I won't keep you here much longer. If you or someone you know is planning a wedding, whether it's a destination wedding or a local wedding, or they want to do something a little differently and need some ideas, that's a good reason to get in touch. And if they don't want to call, if they don't want to call and speak to me, who are these people that don't want to speak to me? But if they don't want to feel pressured to call me, just tell them to join me live on Sundays at 3 p.m. here Eastern, and I'll do my best to answer questions. You can submit your questions ahead of time, either on Facebook or just shoot me an email at debbie@hitchedaway.com. debbie@hitchedaway.com. All right. Thanks for joining me. I wish you a very enjoyable week. And with any luck, I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks so much. Love and success. Bye.